Welcome to Talent Instinct, an electrifying space where we dive into how construction business owners revamp their hunt for top-tier talent by instinctivizing their efforts. It's time to spice up relying on systems and processes and discover prime insights on how to smartly apply their most important aspect, their instinct, as well as intellect, to pinpoint individuals who don't just fit in, but flourish. Let's face it, making the right hire for your business has never been more paramount. The stakes of the wrong hire can disrupt performance, profit, culture, and succession planning. Talent Instinct isn't about playing it safe. It's about conquering with calculated instinct. Hello, people. So today I want to cover some tips, some do's and don'ts of what you should be putting on a resume, as well as what to look out for on a resume for a employer. So some of the things that I come across on a daily basis is that we work in construction and a lot of people are still not tech savvy or don't know how to do resumes, or they've never had a resume because they haven't had to because they've worked for the same company. There are some big mistakes, and I will say that I know or have come across people that are even in some senior positions. Everyone's intelligent in their own way. I don't want to put anyone down, but people that would probably, you'd think, are a little bit more skilled in the way of doing resumes, and they just don't have any idea. Definitely think it should be part of the curriculum in high school for us to be teaching our young people how to do resumes, even give their first one to start off with, because then all they have to do is add on to it. Now, we are not graphic designers. We do not need some fancy la-di-da resume. We need the basic information. I want to know where you live as well. If you are sending a resume through and you are looking for a FIFO job or you're looking for a local job, then that is going to be something different completely. We know that the industry that we work in, most of the people do not want to travel anywhere more than sort of half an hour, 40 minutes, or if they're up the Sunshine Coast and they would prefer to stay up there. If they're in the Gold Coast, then they prefer to stay up there. Some are happy to travel to Brisbane, which is great, but we want to know. And another thing that's helpful to know, depending on the job that you're going for, that your car license is still valid and you can drive. Big things that are going to change the optics on your job application. Also, if your tickets aren't valid, then please put that take them off, or say that your tickets aren't valid and that you're going to get them renewed. They are just some really, really simple things to firstly start off with. Now, what you need to do is you should be putting your last job at the top of the page as your first, and put your duties, maybe put a bit about what the company does, because we normally look at whether you've been in residential, civil, or commercial, and we want to make sure that you've got the same relevant experience. Put a nice bit about yourself, like what you enjoy. I don't care if you have 2 cats, a dog, and love going fishing every weekend. If you want to put that in your hobbies or as an extra, fantastic, you do you. We don't need to have that you have been working forever and have every single job, especially if the job is not relevant to the position you're applying for. I would highly suggest that you go look at the job ad that you're going for and make sure that you have the relevant information of the job description in your duties or in your resume as well. You have to make things a bit of a no-brainer. Again, it's not good or bad. It's more about the fact that if you don't have some keywords with some recruiters, you don't even get a look in the door. It's just how their system works. Everyone has to come to the party to know that most of the stuff we do is automated and we are using systems. It's not something we use. Again, we like to use our instinct, and we like to look through all the resumes and see if we can potentially use you for another position and have a chat to you and just have a good look at your experience. So what you need to do is shorten the bits. If there's jobs that you had that are not relevant for the position, if you are now in construction or you're now a construction worker, but you used to be, I don't know, a meat packer, for example, just put the position that you're in and the company that you worked for and the dates, and that's it. We don't need to know anything else. I don't care. It's not relevant. If it's anything over 10 years, then it's the same thing. If you really want to shorten it, you can. If you've been working as a form worker or an electrician doing the same job the last 20 years and it hasn't really changed, you can shorten it to say duties as a commercial electrician as per the previous position. So those are some tips on your resume. I also want to say that I just need the basic information. So again, where you worked and what you did, your duties, how long you were there for as well. And we need some continuity in someone's resume. So if you didn't work or you did some contract work or you worked for yourself, no problem. Just put in there various jobs between whatever date to whatever date, and these are the different companies, or this is the different jobs that I did through that time. You really need it to speak to someone and tell your story, essentially. And remember that it is your first impression. So how that's done, and if it's done well, shows that you have made an effort. You do not need to go to any specific resume writer and pay $500 to do something to put your best foot forward. Again, we're hiring mostly trades. If you are a project manager or you are an admin person or white collar, we really need to know what systems you've used, whether that be estimating, project management, whatever it is. So we know whether that's going to also align with what the client uses as well, because that's always helpful. It doesn't mean that we're not going to still talk to you or hire you just because you haven't, but it gives us a good idea of what systems you've used and how much you've done. And again, we need to know if you're a project manager or a site supervisor, did you finish the projects on time? How much by? Did you make a great profit for the company on those projects? Because that obviously means that equates to you being good at your job. So again, coming back to this first impression thing, I'm going to look at a resume and go, oh wow, this guy or girl is kicking goals. They are brilliant at their job. If you've left certain jobs and things like that, you can also put the reason why you left the job, because again, you're making this a no-brainer for your employer to connect the dots and see what's going on with you. Unfortunately, sometimes it looks like people are jumping around from job to job, and I've got to be honest with you, I looked like one of those people. I looked like I used to jump from job to job around the 2-year period. Was I still a great employee? Yes. Did I still make the company money? Was I reliable? Was I really good at my job? Would have I stayed? There was other life circumstances that happened. 100%. It had nothing to do with anything other than different things happened in life, and it was just the path that I went on. So I always made sure that I explained that to people as I was going for jobs, to make sure that they understood as well that I had great references and I didn't leave on a bad note. I left because it was just a bit of a life progression thing for me. I moved states, whatever it happened to be. So again, the point of that is that if you make it a bit of a no-brainer for the person, then they don't have to think too hard about it. So now I'm going to flip over to the other side of things, where as an employer, these are the challenges that we have, is that sometimes people aren't updating their resumes properly, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a good employee. It just means that they've either jumped from project to project, which again doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. We have to utilize that person to the best of their ability to how they're going to work for us. So depending on what we're looking for, whether we're just looking for someone to jump in there that's highly skilled and push the project, or whether they are a long-term investment. And those are the things that we need to make sure that we see. We need to not be so judgmental on someone's resume. Some of the problems that I've also been having is that because of the current climate that we've been in, a lot of people are being a little bit lazy and aren't updating their resumes as well. And when we're going to ask them to do so because we need to send it over to the client, they just don't bother. And again, it doesn't mean that they're not a great person. It just means that when they've got an option where they don't have to update their resume to get the job and they don't have to put as much effort in, then they end up going somewhere else. Again, first impressions are everything. I do think that you should be checking some of the people's references as well. I came across a guy that worked for a company that's a mate of mine and a client, and he used his cousin as a reference, and I went and spoke to that client and I knew 100% he'd never been a supervisor there. We sort of had a laugh and we're like, are you kidding? Can you believe this client's going through it? I think that you need to also make sure that with your CCADs and things like that, that you understand that the statistics behind people looking at CCADs and when they look at them is going to help you also with your attracting clients. And I think that you have to make sure that you're writing your ads so they can see them on their phone and they can read them easily. I change my ads depending on what position I'm looking for. If we're looking for labourers or tradespeople, we try and keep it very simple, talk about the project, what tickets and licenses they need, where it's going to be, all of that sort of stuff. And then if we're looking for someone that's a project manager, a CA, admin person, receptionist, whatever it may be, then again, we change the ad to probably have a bit more information. There are personality types that suit different people, and depending on what personality type you're looking to employ, depends on the ad that you have to write. And that's your first impression also to the person that you're hiring. So I see it day in and day out where people don't do great C cards, and that's why they're not attracting talent, if any talent, let alone the best possible talent. Because if you haven't taken some pride in the initial ad that you're writing, well, that also speaks volumes about you. Again, I'm not saying you're bad or anything. I don't want anyone to jump on me and be like, I can't believe she said that. It really is just about the fact that these are making some broad statements here about how people react to certain things. So I hope this short little podcast has helped on some tips, and I hope you guys have found some value in it, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks for listening to Talent Instinct. I'm Chantal Penny, and if you want more razor sharp insider info on instinctivizing your hiring game, then hit the subscribe button. Oh, and remember to drop a killer rating and review. Please don't hold back. Spread the news to fellow construction business owners too. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and soak up all of my content, please do so by stalking us on Talent Instinct and my brainchild Siteforce Recruitment on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.